We are green there. S&P's good for a little bit, and the Dow's fighting it out as well. Joe, I got today the VIX fastest round trip from panic to calm ever. That's according to Bespoke. We're just above 18 there. Tom Lee says risk reward for stocks is better today than February of 25. That's the old high. JP Morgan says U.S. equities escape from a black hole. And Belsky of BMO says the bull market's alive and well. You agree?
The momentum in the near term points towards a run at the all-time highs for sure. We're in the middle of May. The buyback window now opens. We're past CPI. You have the 90-day pause. What does that allow? That allows the main headline to be about the tax bill. And most importantly, you now have had a change of possession, if you would, in the market. And the change of possession is defense is off the field, and now here comes the offense. And that's exactly what I'm seeing in front of me. So the defensive plays, if you look at financials, insurance companies, Progressive, Chubb, Travelers, we talked about those for the last 3 months.
Yeah,
places to hide out.
Staples and utilities.
All down.
Yep.
Take a look at McDonald's over the last several days, Philip Morris. So it's very
Costco, Walmart.
Very clear to me that this change of possession is now favoring the semiconductors. It's favoring the Magnificent Seven. It's favoring the companies that were somewhat unloved. And what that allows for is a rebuilding of positioning, and it works off some of the bearish sentiment that was prevalent just 1 week ago.
All right, Bryn, how do you see it here in the face of the context of the commentary that I brought, and then Joe as well? Do you feel like we are in a new environment now that you need to play more offense and less defense?
I think we're now in this known environment, and I think that's where Tom Lee talking about the setup today is better than February, because in February we did not know what was about to hit us. And I think that the White House and the markets needed some quick wins after the chaos of the Liberation Day rollout. And what was resistance at the 200-day of 57.50 is now going to be firm support. And so I think the move that we have a 90-day reprieve between the U.S. and China, those talks are going fine, as we all hear. I think that makes room for, to Joe's point, the semis, which have been so beaten up, to continue to run. I think other areas, though, are starting to get frothy, and we'll get into some of the names later, but I think it's a bunch of names, the Palantir, Tesla, Robinhood, HIMS, IONQ, that really look somewhat parabolic after this move of the last month. So I think from those companies, I think the returns should be somewhat limited, but I think the broadening out will continue, and names like the financial asset managers, et cetera, can continue to run.
Weiss, you had been playing max defense for a while, but your moves today are very much representative of the change in tone and tenor of the market. What Joe was talking about, time to play a little more offense. You bought back Amazon and Nvidia, sold them not that long ago. I guess in late April you were out of both of those names. Now you're in again.
Yeah, actually the timing on the purchase was April 25th and May 1st. So I've been in for a few weeks. The sale of those was earlier. The most recent sale, though, was Amazon. And look, it's been a great trading market. I haven't touched my my core names of Meta, Microsoft, Leidos, Taiwan Semi, et cetera, and Netflix. In fact, I've added to those during the period. But it was a great opportunity to make money in the market. And I did just that. So I didn't catch the rally at the beginning by any stretch. But selling them at the highs that some got back to, some didn't, and buying them back down, not lows, but quite near, is how traders make money in the market.
Weiss, you didn't tell us about this yesterday. Why did you tell us about it yesterday?
I did whisper to you.
April 25th to May 1st, you bought back Amazon and Nvidia.
Right.
Well, you whispered it to me when?
I told you while you were on set, and you said, wait, I'm listening to Kevin. I also mentioned it to the others yesterday.
Okay. All right. So the point is you're ready to play more offense.
Yeah, as I said, I've been saying for the last week, I'm pretty fully invested now, so I am. Look, a lot's going to depend on what happens after the 90-day window closes. And what we've seen is that there's almost a complete give up on the tariff moves wisely that Trump initiated. And so we're now down to about a base case of 10%. I think that will continue. but there's always the unsureness of what the administration's doing. So you still have to be cautious in the market.
I mean, Nvidia is back above its 200-day for the first time
That's not a long-term hold.
Since February.
Right.
It's back above $3 trillion in market cap. It's bigger than Apple again. It's really been a remarkable comeback. Can we get a 1 month rather than an intraday, guys, please, to show you the bounce back in this stock, which was under 90 bucks, and we're questioning whether this stock story was done for a bit, and it's had this really remarkable rally back. Jason Snipe, what do you make of that move that we've seen in Nvidia?
Yeah, no, it's been super interesting. Obviously, the stock is back to flat for the year. It was up 20% in the last month. I think there was a lot of concerns, early part of first quarter about export controls and how that was going to play out for the stock. Concerns around China and what's going on there. Obviously, we heard yesterday the investment from the Middle East, and I think that's going to be powerful for the name. I think if you go back to their last report, they talked about $1 trillion in capex over the next few years to build out, AI factories. So the story hasn't changed so much in terms of their pole position as far as AI is concerned. But this has been a boost, and this has been a boost from the news from the Saudis yesterday.
5-day win streak for NAS, highest level since February as well. You look, NASDAQ's gotten back above 19K. You want to say something?
I sure do. If we can we get a 1-year chart of Microsoft? Because you and I have spoken about first in, first out. Take the Mag 7. Which of the Mag 7 is closest to making a new all-time high? It's Microsoft. It's a great example of when we talk about rebuilding position and reversing the bearish sentiment. Arguably, Microsoft was that one Mag 7 name that had the most bearish sentiment and the weakest positioning coming into the year.
See, I don't think that Microsoft actually deserves the valuation it's at right now, and I own it. I'm not going to sell it, but I think that you get through this go-go period, and there's been a ton of short covering, if you look at the prime brokerage reports, that have driven this rally.
Agreed.
That you'll have the same concerns about Microsoft, which is the growth and the multiple on it. And I think that we've gotten back to what were excessive multiples at the end of last year.
Well, what's the forward? What is the forward now? Guys, can you throw this up too for me, please? The forward PE on Microsoft now. Because, again, the stock had underperformed. It didn't do anything. So there you're 31. You're 31 times. I don't think you're at the high, but you're not that far off either.
30s, you're right. You're not that far off. In terms of Nvidia, it has changed. While it still is the pole position, and I'm out as it gets to 140, which is where resistance was before, because you're actually seeing the chips that the big hyperscalers have been working on for years to remove their dependence on Nvidia coming into the market for their own data centers and their own technology and service, et cetera. So it has changed. Nobody's going to be held with those kind of balance sheets those companies have. They're not going to be held hostage to Nvidia super pricing forever.
Bryn, the chips are ripping today. If you look at many of the stocks, by the way, we always talk about the SMH. You can look up the stocks. It's up nearly 50% off of its April intraday low. The SMH is now positive year to date by 1.5%, 5 days in a row. That's the first time since February. Is that trade back?
I think parts of the trade are back. I think AMD, which I don't own, has been left for dead. I think, Lisa Su is great. And so I think parts of it, because we were at this existential cliff that, Jensen went to Washington numerous times. He was just in Saudi about, hey, if we shut off China, we are shutting off innovation to America. And I think that's where the White House repealed the diffusion rule, which was supposed to go into effect this week, which would have made so many more export controls over a host of countries in addition to China and Russia. And so I think there was a timeout here. We are literally on the precipice of destroying this innovation. And so I think the rally is warranted. A lot of these stocks have just been left for dead. And so we are going to have more of a globalist America innovation win-win scenario. I think especially Nvidia which earnings, don't forget, haven't come out yet. They come out May 26th. And I think they're still looking for 65 and 50% revenue and earnings growth. So just monster numbers still coming out of Nvidia. And I think Jensen will delight investors. So I think going into those Nvidia earnings, the whole sector, I think, will continue to rally.
The report just before we came on the air, the IPO up at the NASDAQ eToro Group, we're still waiting on the first trade, and we're going to bring that to you as soon as we get it. You saw the report from Tanay McKeel looking at it up there. It just brings to mind what's happening, or basically what hasn't been happening in the IPO market. Yes, you've had a few. Chime, by the way, has filed for an IPO at the NASDAQ as well. We started to wonder, okay, well, maybe now this is the moment. Has some of the fog, or at least enough of it, lifted that you can have some good IPO activity? Goldman's trading like it. 6 straight days up. Some of the other financials, too. Some of the private equity names, Bryn, like KKR, getting upgraded today, and those stocks have looked better as well ever since we had the rollback of these tariffs on China, and all of a sudden it felt like it was time to play a little offense.
Yeah, I bought the stock and Apollo twice, once before Liberation Day and then once after that. And I think that this is a levered way to play the economy globally, as well as the asset management firms. I think that these private public vehicles are supposedly going into 401ks. You know, these companies continue just to dominate their incentive and management fees. If you look at the earnings of both Apollo and KKR. So I think this is a really good way. They're still down for the year. And so I think this is a really good way to own the private equity firms. Instead of buying private equity, buy the publicly traded companies where you actually have liquidity, and you will also benefit from the management incentive fees instead of paying them if you're investing directly into the funds.
Jay, Apollo,
Yeah.
Blackstone, Goldman as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think Apollo, you know, when I look at the last quarter and you think about the macro overhang, first of all, the fee business was up 18%. They raised $43 billion this quarter, which was a record quarter for them. They had $84 billion that was deployed as well, which I think is healthy. So when I think about the macro and kind of the clouds that you alluded to earlier, it might not really open up till 2026, but this is the time that you get in. It's just now.
Of the day, Christina Partsinevelos. All right, some calls of the day. We start with Robinhood today, Bryn. Goldman upping their estimates. They reiterate their buy rating. Their price target goes to 64 from 56. What do we think about this name? I think you still like it. It's trying for 7 straight days of gains.
Yeah, I still own it. It's just been on a monster move. If you pull up probably like a 10-day, 2-week chart, it's gone from basically 48 to 62 here. So I think Goldman's just following price. I think if you look at the chart, being that it does look parabolic, I think this is very overbought right now. I would definitely not be adding to the position, and I actually had sold some calls at 50, which expire next Friday. So that position, I'm sure, will get called away. I will continue to buy this name on weakness when it pulls back down, maybe even to the 50-day. But right here, it looks really overbought. So I'd be careful adding new positions if you haven't owned it before.
I'm wondering how you feel about your Nike purchase, right? You had the guts to buy it when no one liked it, and many may still hate it. But the détente, if you want to call it that, with China, does it make you more optimistic, or not? Just not thinking about it in that sense yet?
I'm not thinking about it in that sense. I bought it at the same time I bought Restoration Hardware. And just to go back, I bought it because they have 500,000 employees in Vietnam, and I felt really, really solid that what Howard Lutnick was saying, we're all going to make iPhones and make shoes, was never going to happen. And so really it was just a trade off of that. We'll see where it gets to resistance. I'll sell the name just because I don't have a viewpoint fundamentally. Just like Restoration, I'm sure gets called away from me next week. But I think it's a good reminder of that. You know, when volatility presents itself, just you don't have to read the article or the news headlines that day. You need to look out a month or 2 months and think that the world will be different. And I think Nike and Restoration Hardware were good examples of that.
Jace, we talked about Lowe's. You have Procter, right? So
Yeah.
another one that seemed to be a good place to be, right? Staples not loved right now.
You got it.
AutoZone too. What about that?
Yeah, AutoZone has had a really strong year. I think my concern early on with the macro and the tariff concern is kind of assembly. A lot of their assembly goes on in Mexico, and what the cost of their parts would be, for vehicles. But they have been an earnings compounder. They have been resilient, and I do think folks are continuing as car prices are starting to come down. We did see that in the CPI print yesterday. Folks are still focused on keeping their cars on the road for longer, and AutoZone is right in that traffic.
All right. Bryn, final trade is what?
Apollo just popped above the 200-day, strong fee-related earnings. I think the stock can be in the 150s.
Thank you. Jason Snipe.
I like Goldman here. It's up 20% in the last month. Momentum is in the stock.
Steve Weiss.
Taiwan Semi, look, they had a phenomenal quarter. It's coming back. I think it still goes higher.
All right, and Joe, you must be Zoom Communications. Why are you picking that today?
Own it personally and own it in the ETF. And by the way, Jimmy Lebenthal's happy. We mentioned him in Citigroup. He's all happy.
Why'd you have to mention it twice? Now you're pandering.
Look, Jimmy.
I'll see you at the Stone Conference in just a bit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Blue Cloud Trading. My name is George. It is Wednesday, May 14th. It's 5:54 p.m. as I'm recording this. It's after the close. And in this video, we're going to talk about the stocks and ETFs that they discussed on the halftime report earlier today. One of the things that we like to do is get the stock market news and then basically analyze it. And I use something called the Ichimoku indicator. It's a Japanese indicator. It looks a little complicated with all these lines that you see here, but as I'll explain, it's relatively simple. Okay, once we get an understanding about it, we're going to look at this on different time frames. We'll look at the daily and 2 hour today. All right, so let's get started here with looking. And by the way, they talked about 14 specific stocks. So you can see them right here, like Palantir. We'll look at that one. Robinhood. Okay, McDonald's, Walmart. You can see them all right here. And then we'll take a look at the Fab 7 stocks, like Nvidia, Google, and some member requests here. We'll take a look at the sectors, and we'll look at the indices. And we'll do all of this in a relatively short period of time through the use of this indicator. And that's the beauty of it. Ichimoku stands for at a glance. We want to simplify the concept of analyzing stocks as far as charts are concerned, right? You want to make it as simple as possible. You don't want to spend too much time, but you do want to get an understanding of where the price is in relation to where it was in the past, and so you can get a better sense about the current direction of the market or specific stock or ETF. First, let's do this. Let's take a look at the markets today. You can see that the Dow Jones was down again today, down 0.21%. It was down yesterday as well. The NASDAQ is up again, 0.72%. S&P 500 is up 0.10%. So it's pretty flat. You can see here it opened at this level and closed, I'm sorry, this was the prior day's close, and it closed up slightly, up 0.10%. And the Russell 2000, here was the closing price yesterday. It actually dropped 0.89%. Here's the heat map. This shows us the 1 week performance, but let's look at today's performance here. And you'll notice that the majority of the healthcare stocks are all in the red here, pretty much. You've got the utilities, basic materials, energies were down. But Nvidia up 4.16, Google up 3.68, Tesla up 4.07. And let's look at the sectors. Let's zoom in on these. So today, the two sectors that were up the most were communication services and technology, and the ones worst were basic materials and healthcare. And there's the 1 week performance if you want to look at that. All right, well, let's get started with the Dow Jones, and then we'll look at these other ones in a few moments. So DIA ETF. Now, in yesterday's video, I mentioned that price was stalling at that 200-day, and it's still stalling. It was unable to for a third day to break above. Now, it closed above it on Friday last week. Was that Friday? No, that was on Monday, sorry. On Monday, May 12th, it did close above the 200-day, but it was still inside the cloud, so we didn't have a really clear buy signal there. Yesterday, it was a negative candle. It had closed down, and then today, another drop, 0.23%. So that's interesting. Here's a 2 hour time frame. You can see it's pulling down a little bit and under the Tenkan-sen. That's the 9 period. And so just real briefly, for those of you who are coming to this channel for the first time and may not be familiar with this indicator, basically what you want to see is price, these little candlesticks that you see here. be above the green line. That's the 9-period moving average. Takes the last 9 periods, plots it right there, the average of those 9 candles. The red line is the average of the last 26, so it's a little bit slower. Then you've got the Ichimoku cloud, and this is basically the midpoint. If you take the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen and you project the midpoint of that 26 periods into the future, that's where you'll find what's called the Senku span A, which is the light colored blue line there. The purple line is actually the midpoint of the last 52 periods. So it's the average of the last 52 periods, and it's projected 26 periods into the future. And you basically want to see the Senku span A above the Senku span B. All right. Over here, that was not the case. You can see that. You want to see price above the moving averages. You want to see price above the cloud. And one more element of this indicator is the Chiku span, that white line, and that's the closing price projected 26 periods into the past. And when you see that white line is above the candle 26 periods ago, like it is right there, that is also very bullish. So right now, the only thing that's missing out of this picture is price being above the green line, which is the 9-period. Okay, on the 2-hour time frame, that would give you a buy signal, basically. All right. FEZ, let's look at this one. Here's the daily chart for the Euro stocks. Today, we actually developed something called a dark cloud cover pattern. So let me show you that real quick. It consists of 2 candles, these 2 little candles right here. And basically what happened was price gapped up, okay, and then ended up dropping, closing within the body of the prior candle. If we were to look at that here on this little cheat sheet, let's zoom in on it. It's a bearish double candle pattern, and there it is. So after a move up, okay, you see that the price, it gaps up, price drops, closes within the body of the candle. That's exactly what happened. And there's a higher likelihood now that this may pull back a little bit more. It is in a strong uptrend though. And here's a 2-hour time frame. It's actually still finding support right at the Tenkan-sen. Okay. Let's take a look at Russell 2000. That's the IWM ETF. This one is, here we are on the 2-hour. We're currently under the Tenkan-sen, but in a strong uptrend, as you can see, right? We've been up above the Ichimoku cloud now since April 23rd, right there, that opening price, and it's moved up about 7.22%. Here is the daily chart. Okay, just recently, just these last few days, did we get above the Ichimoku cloud. So a lot of traders, what they like to do is, like myself, I like to look at different time frames. I like to look at the weekly. I like to look at the daily and the 2-hour. I like to look at all of these to help me determine whether or not I should be entering a position in any stock. And sometimes you'll notice that the weekly charts are very weak, like at the Russell 2000, for example. It's still under the Ichimoku cloud. It has been unable to break back in here, finding some resistance right now. Here's the daily chart. Yes, it popped through, but it's still under that declining 200-day moving average, that yellow line that you see right there. So it's not looking super strong. In fact, if you look a little bit more closely here, you'll notice that the price came up to that 209.27 level on the daily chart based on that prior high, and now it seems to be basically getting rejected. Okay, that's why price dropped 0.89%. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this drop some more tomorrow, maybe come back to these levels, and then where it might find some support. All right, so let's see what happens tomorrow. All right, here's the QQQ ETF, but basically what it's saying is, yeah, you don't want to be entering a long position based on this pattern here that we're seeing. It's turning over, obviously. Here's the QQQ ETF on the daily chart. It is still strong, right, up 0.60%, but it actually it has a clear pathway. If you look, if you look right here at that 540.81, that's the prior level of resistance right there. We have a little bit of a potential here of moving some more, but let's measure that line right there, maybe another 4.3% before it reaches that resistance level. So the Qs have some potential. They are a little bit extended at this point. Here's a 2-hour time frame. All right, so you can see it's been moving up steadily. On the 2-hour time frame, it gapped above the cloud right there back on April 23rd, and it's up 13.37%. So that's the cool thing about this software that I use called TC2000. I mean, you can switch it to any time frame that you want, so that you can get an idea of what's happening on shorter time frames. If you want to be a little bit more of an active type trader, you can look at the 2-hour. You can look at the 30-minute. Look at the 30-minute. That looks pretty good too. And the Ichimoku is going to give you some insights, right, about what's happening on these different time frames. Here's a 5-minute. So if we look at the 5-minute here on the 14th, right, May 14th, you can see it didn't really move up much. But on the 13th, it had a nice little run up, you know. So, and on the 12th here, we had a big gap up. So you can see all of that with the TC2000. There is a $25 coupon if you guys are interested in trying this software out. You can get that coupon real quickly. Let me show you right here under my YouTube channel. There's a link and 9 more links. If you click on this right here and you scroll down, there's this link for the $25 coupon. You click on that link and it brings you to this page. You enter your email here. You can download it for Windows, and it's also available on different platforms there. And then it says here, you will receive that $25 coupon towards your TC2000 service courtesy of Blue Cloud Trading. Here's the pricing. I would recommend that you go with the gold. Here's the monthly pricing with the gold versus the silver, because there's not a lot of features here. You can't draw on the charts. You can't do anything with silver. You can with gold. And platinum might be overkill, but, you know, maybe start off with the gold. Okay, let's get back to our charts. So what am I thinking about the QQQ ETF? I think it has more potential here to continue moving up. It's been, you know, stair-stepping its way up on the 2-hour time frame. On the daily chart, still moving up. It's getting a little bit far away from the equilibrium zone, which is the Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen, so that's always a little bit concerning. It could certainly come back, you know, at some point, maybe pull back a little bit, a couple of days, and then continue, right? That would be normal. That's how price moves. It just moves up, pulls back, continues moving up. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see it pull back a little bit and then continue. All right, here's the SPY, S&P 500 ETF. We took out the April 2nd, very important time candle right there. And now things are starting to look a little bit more bullish on the S&P 500 on the daily chart. And here's the 2-hour. Okay, so there you can see it gapped up, for example, on April 23rd. And if we measure from that point, it's moved up 8.72%. And here's the VIX. Now the VIX is the CBOE Market Volatility Index. Represents fear in the markets. It was up 2.2% today, but it's still declining on the 2-hour. Here's the daily time frame, still under the 200, still under the cloud. All right, let's go to the stocks that they talked about on the show, CNBC, on CNBC. Here's Palantir. This is a stock that I've traded a few times and had some nice returns on this one in the past, and I got out of that position back here on May 5th. And it pulled back, and then now it's basically continuing its way up. Like I said before, price sometimes it just pulls back, and then you can see a new move. It is now breaking a prior level of resistance, the 125.41, and you can find that level back here, all the way back to February 19th, 2025. So we're getting through that. So there's a probability here of a continuation, all right? And here's the 2-hour on that one. So you can see it's basically stalling a little bit after the breakout there. It's kind of creating this, what's called a base. And so if we can break through that and get above that level right there, I think there's some more potential. And you still have that 125.41 as a level of support, basically. Here's Robinhood. Let's look at this on the daily time frame. So today we have what's called a bearish engulfing. I'm sorry, I take that back. Bearish harami. So many names with these Japanese candlesticks. So those two candles right there, that one and that one, bearish harami. So let me show you what that means, or what it looks like on the cheat sheet. There it is. So it's a large green candle followed by a small red candle, okay? And it's within the body. And that's the most important thing, right? It's within it. Basically, that little one is within the body of the prior one. So if you look here, that's what's going on. We have that large candle, and that is a small little candle within the body. Now, What does that mean? It just means that there's a higher probability, and there's no guarantees in the market, ever. Always remember that. No guarantees, but there's a higher probability that this could turn lower tomorrow. That's all. And if it gets under the low of that larger candle, it's more than likely to continue to drop. But we've got support levels here. We've got green line, we've got the red line over here. And here's a 2-hour for you. So you can see it's pulling back. So it could get a little bounce once it touches that 9 period. It many times does that, right? It comes to it and then it takes off. Comes to it, takes off. So we'll see what happens. All right, CB on the 2-hour. That's Chubb Corporation. Doesn't look that great. Okay, so would not be jumping into this. As you can see here, we've got a lower high on the 2-hour from the prior high and a lower low from the prior low. So that's the 2-hour. Here's a daily time frame. It's under the Ichimoku cloud right now, and kind of stalling. It even closed under today, under the 200-day moving average. Now the 200-day moving average has been on an incline though, so I don't know. We'll see if sometimes what will happen is it'll be a temporary break under, like it was over here, okay, and then find some support, at these levels here, and then continue to expand. So let's see what happens there. McDonald's is another stock they talked about. Here's a daily time frame. It's basically stalling right on the cloud. It's still under the moving averages here. And here's the 2-hour time frame. Doesn't look that great to me. I wouldn't be getting into that one. Walmart on the 2-hour is inside the cloud on the 2-hour, and this is what it looks like on the daily, under the Tenkan-sen. SOX, Semiconductor, is in an upward channel, okay, inside of an upward channel. That's the Semiconductor Sector Index Fund. On the daily, it's just crossed and closed above the 200-day moving average. But look at this. That's a spinning top. That's also a very negative reversal candle. Doesn't mean it's going to definitely work out that way, where it's going to pull back, but probability is higher. One more thing to pay attention to also is the volume. See that volume right there? See how it's declining each day as price was moving up? That means that there are less and less buyers basically coming in. That's all that means. Cisco on the daily time frame, stalling, okay? Down 0.79%. It is above the cloud. Here it is on the 2-hour. Okay, so what you'd want to see, maybe it will come back down to the Kijinsen here, like it did in the past, and then we'll see a little pop-up. But it's overall, it's in a strong uptrend on the 2-hour. But the daily, it's just pulling back a little bit here. KKR, popping its head above the cloud, but still under that 200-day. Here's a 2-hour, looking pretty strong on the 2-hour time frame. APO on the 2-hour time frame, still in an uptrend, but just popped under Tenkan-sen. Here's the daily. Okay. Nike is currently under the cloud, so I would stay out of this one for sure. 2-hour. Wow, isn't that interesting? So let's look at that one more time. Here's a daily chart. I want you guys to see where it's stalling. Right there, right at the top of the cloud, which is a natural level of resistance. Okay. And then if we look at it on a shorter time frame like the 2-hour, there's that 200-day moving average right there as well. And it's declining. So it's more than likely to continue pulling back here, I think. We shall see. Here's a weekly chart. Ooh, another level of resistance. That's interesting. When you see triple time frames, like 3 different time frames telling you the same story, you should listen, basically, okay? Here it is, stalling at the 9-period moving average on the weekly chart. So that is concerning right there. I think that's more than likely to pull back now. Okay, but remember, it's always the news that make or break a stock. And so when the news are positive, we'll see it on the charts. We'll see that happen. We'll see the new buyers coming in and price will move up. AZO, AutoZone, here it is on the weekly. Here it is on the daily inside the cloud, and on the 2-hour time frame, not looking that pretty. It just closed under the cloud on the 2-hour, so I would stay out of that one. I would definitely stay out of that one. Goldman Sachs, on the other hand, on the 2-hour, look at that. That's a nice move up. It's actually, since it popped through that cloud right there on April 22nd, It's moved up 17.74%. And you can see how how it can protect your portfolio when from staying out of stocks when they're under the Ichimoku cloud, like over here, for example, where it broke under on the 2-hour time frame. You can see right there, if we measure from that point to the lows down here, all right, on April 7th, it dropped 30.45% in 1.5 months. It's a big drop, 30 point whatever, okay? Now, it has moved up since then, but yeah, that it can keep you out of trouble pretty much. So TSM, oh yeah, I didn't forget to show you guys the daily on that one too. Here's the daily chart, also showing some strength. So when you have a higher time frame confirming, say a shorter time frame like the 2-hour, that's a huge benefit. It just tells you you're getting a confirmation. That's all. And I also use the directional movement index. Just real briefly, let me tell you how you can identify if this is good or bad for the stock. What you want to look for is the green line. I have it at a setting of 9. Okay. What you want to see is the green line above the red line, and you want to see the white line, that white line right there, moving up. That's the ADX. When the green line is above the red line. If the white line here is moving up, but the red line is above the green line, like it was right there, and if you go straight up, you'll notice that that's not a good place to be. It's more than likely to continue dropping. Why? Because the momentum is negative. Yes, it's increasing, but the momentum is increasing to the downside. All right, and then once you notice that the ADX here, the momentum starts to stall, like right there where it turns over a little bit, okay, that's when you might start to see some relief from the decline. And you'll see here, if we go straight up, that's when we started seeing price moving up. Okay, some little signals. It's good to look at different things and get an overall picture of what's going on. TSM is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. This one, Steve Weiss, I guess that was his trade back on April 11th. Let's go back to April 11th here. Right there, Friday, April 11th. He was advocating for this back here. Now, personally, yeah, it's actually moved up quite a bit. It's moved up about 22%. It's hard to tell. Like, I mean, he's been holding on to this stock forever. It was in a decline for a bit, but now it is starting to pop. So again, on the daily time frame, you're getting the signal. We got the signal right here yesterday on Tuesday, May 13th, that it was starting to look more bullish on this time frame. On the 2-hour, we had that signal all the way back here where it popped above on April 23rd. And since that point, like I said, it's moved up 23.74%. So that 2-hour time frame is not a bad time frame to use if you want to get in earlier on the trade. All right, it's really up to you guys to determine what time you want to, which of these time frames you want to use. If you're day trading, you can throw it on a 1 minute. There's a 1 minute time frame, okay, or a 3 minute or whatever. So let's look at Zoom, and let's look at the daily on Zoom Communications. Now this is an interesting stock because if we switch it to a monthly chart for a moment, where each of these little candles that you see here represents 1 month, and these are the years 2020, 2021, you can see, and so forth. The Ichimoku works on any time frame, which is great. You can see it got under the Tenkan-sen right there on December 31st, 2020. That was the last time that it made sense to be buying, holding this position. In fact, I probably would have got out right there if I was just using the monthly chart, for example, hypothetically, looking at my stocks once a month and looking to see what it looked like using the Ichimoku. You can see that shooting star. That's a very, very negative candle. And I'll show you what that looks like real quick here on this cheat sheet that we have. It's a single candle. It's bearish. Long, long wick. Small body. All right. That's what we have. And that tends to lead to a decline, as it did right there. Now, how big of a decline was that? If we measure from that point to the lows down here, to that low right there, 87.18% in 3.8 years. So your stock would be, your money would be tied in there for that long, 3.8 years. Right now, it's basically down 81.82% in 4.5 years. So when people say, oh, buy a stock and hold it forever, okay, well, in this scenario, you wouldn't come out that well. There's no proof, there's no evidence that a stock is going to return back to those levels again, ever. It may not. Sometimes stocks just kind of go out of, sometimes they even go out of existence. Look at Enron, which is a stock I've talked about many times, right? So technicals can help keep you in the right stocks, and look for the ones that are moving up, folks, not moving down, because right now, Zoom is starting to show a little bit of life on the weekly. So when we switch it here from the monthly to the weekly chart, and that's just, again, you can use whatever time frame you want to make your decisions on. You have to kind of pick that time frame. But here on the weekly chart, you can see we've emerged above the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly. That happened back here on this date right here. Whoop, let me get rid of that for a moment. Right there, that happened on August 23rd, 2024. Since then, it's moved up 18.5%. Here's a daily time frame. It's a very messy kind of chart. But it has emerged on the daily time frame above the cloud right here on May 9th. As you can see, it's moved up 2.6%. Here's a 2-hour for you. So again, in the 2-hour time frame, you can trade these on any time frame. It popped above right there on April 23rd, and it's moved up 13.75%. And notice how well this indicator holds the price in place, right? So you see, as long as the green line remains above the red line, you're in a nice strong uptrend as well. Price sometimes pops under, maybe giving you a new buying opportunity, right? Like right there. Here it created a little base, and then it continued to expand. Alrighty, let's go to the Fab 7 stocks real quick. And let's not spend too much time here. I want to shorten this video a little bit. I don't want it to be too super long. Here's Microsoft on the 2-hour time frame. We had that big gap up. It's still continuing to move up, finding resistance at around the 456 level. Here it is on the daily time frame. So you got confirmation on this one. Nvidia on the daily time frame. Well, let me show you the weekly first. It just popped this week above the Ichimoku cloud. Not all of the elements of Ichimoku, all right, are looking that bullish though. The Chikou span, that white line, is still under price on the weekly. The Tenkan-sen is under the Kijun-sen, but we do show a lot of strength these last, 5 weeks, right? And here's a daily time frame. So you can see how it's emerged now. Yesterday on Tuesday it popped up, and here's a 2-hour. Again, you want to get in early on these, you can use the 2-hour. Here it is. It popped above the Ichimoku cloud right about there on April 24th. It's moved up approximately 26%. All right, almost 27. Came up, pulled back a little bit here, found support of the Kijun-sen, moved up some more, stair-stepping its way up. So stay above the clouds, that's important. Google on the 2-hour. Here it is emerging out. Okay, so here's, again, popping through the cloud. Let's look to see where the level resistance is right there. Do you see on the 2-hour how it's based on this little high right here of 166.10 right there? That has not been taken out yet. So it's finding resistance right here. So I'd be watching that closely. Here's a daily time frame inside the cloud under the 200-day. So not something I'd be interested in personally. Tesla breaking through the Ichimoku cloud. Check this out, the Kumo twist, the Senkou span A crossing through the Senkou span B. ADX is moving up. Chikou span is above price. All these things are happening on the daily. On the weekly chart, we are going to be finding resistance right there at the Kijun-sen, the 26 period. And so that's something I'd be watching closely this week to see what happens tomorrow, the next day. And here's a 2-hour time frame. You can see that price is starting to create these little reversal candles, like a spinning tops that you see here. Amazon down 0.53% on the 2-hour. I'm sorry, this is the 2-hour chart. It was down 0.53% today. Here's the daily chart, stalling right up here. Shooting star, not a great series of little candles. The positive is we did break through that 206.21, so it might continue moving up more. Apple, inside the cloud, stalling, right there with a doji. That's also a reversal candle. And here's a 2-hour. Just recently broke through, but hasn't taken out these highs here. So that's why I hold off a little bit longer for this one. Meta, on the other hand, on the 2-hour time frame, has done quite well. Once it broke through the Ichimoku cloud, now you can see here it pulled back into the cloud temporarily and then popped right back out above. And since that point, it has moved up 22%. Here's the daily time frame. All right, 3 days now above the cloud. Okay, let's continue. And we've got a couple of requests from our members. Let's look at HWM. Okay, so Helmet Aerospace Inc. This is in the aerospace and defense, industry. Let's bring this down a little bit. I do have some notes here. I've traded this a few times. So I had a trade here back on January 28th, closed out of it back here on February 20th for an 11.2% profit. I also took a trade on this when it popped here in the daily time frame above the Ichimoku cloud on April 23rd, and I got out right there on May 2nd. Shared all these trades are shared with members, guys. And I made a 19.3% profit on that one. This one actually, in retrospect, I kind of wish I held on a little bit longer, but I felt like it was getting a little bit extended here. But yeah, it's moved up a little bit more. Now, what's going on at this particular moment? It's kind of stalling a little bit. You can see that it's building, again, a base, right? Do you see these candles getting squeezed into this little very, very tight box, right? So what I'd be waiting to see is if it can break through that level, we get a candle that closes above, then I could certainly see a reason for re-entry in this one. But right now, the fact that it's stalling, it just basically says, hey, there's a possibility here that this could be the end of the trend, especially if price breaks under the Tenkan-sen. The next level of support is going to be down over here on the Kijun-sen, and so we're talking about a potential 15.3% drop. This stock does move quite a bit. It's got a beta of 1.48, so I'd be very cautious. You can also use the 2-hour, and you can see even on the 2-hour, notice how tight this range is. Super, super tight. So it's just kind of stuck in there. Therefore, right now, if you happen to be holding a position in this, I would just hold on and see what happens in the near future. Like, keep an eye on it. Keep a very close eye on that. Here's another stock that was requested, QXO. Here we are let's start with a weekly chart. You can see on the QXO, so this is a technology sector software application. On the weekly, it's under the Ichimoku cloud. Very, very, that's interesting. Let me just look at these candles. They're like tiny little candles. Let's look at this on the daily time frame. It's been, again, wow, that's a very, very tight range there. So look at this, guys. All right, this is going back a while, too. All the way back to around December 2024. It's just basically hovering right, whoops. Let me fix that. Right there. It has not even broken through that high yet. So that's the area that I'd be waiting to see if it can get through. Like you can see the highs there are around 1807. Yeah, 1807 or 1818 would be a level that I'd be watching. Right now it's at 1604. Just barely broke through on the daily time frame above the 200-day. But that 200-day moving average is still declining. We haven't seen this even flatten out and start to move up. So that's, not something that you can really trust that thing is going to definitely take off. Here's a 2-hour time frame. It is in the beginning stages here at least on this time frame, moving up. And since it's a pop above the cloud here back on May 8th, it's moved up 17.79%. So right now, if you're trading this on the 2-hour, I would certainly continue holding onto this until it starts to show weakness. Maybe pulling under the Tenkan-sen, or if you start seeing like the things I've talked about in the past, the signals that you want to look out for. Remember that if you are a member, or if you want to become a member so that you can access the member-only videos, guys, there's a way to do that. You just come to my, again, same place that we were at earlier, right here. Actually, you can just click the join button on my homepage for that. Don't forget to subscribe, by the way, if you haven't. But if you hit the join button, this pop-up will come up. Blue Cloud supporter, Blue Cloud trader, and Blue Cloud Legend level member. All three memberships have different perks. Blue Cloud Trader level is where you can get the exclusive member-only videos, though. And Blue Cloud Legend level membership, you'll get those exclusive member-only videos, plus some day trading videos, plus daily trade updates, which I post. Let me show you where, once you become a member, there'll be new tabs that pop up here, and it will look like this. You'll see membership pop up. Once you and then you click on membership, and that's where you'll find my posts. My daily posts on the trades that I'm placing. And for videos, the members only videos, you can scroll down right here, member only videos. There's tons of them in here. You'll have access to all of the videos that I've placed over many months. Okay, so check that out. Okay, let's get back to what we're talking about here. Now, we just talked about QXO, so let's talk about the sectors very briefly. This video is getting pretty long here, sorry. Industrials on the daily time frame. Okay, it's popped. It's down 0.48% today. Here it is on the 2-hour, stalling a little bit under the Tenkan-sen. Bitcoin on the 2-hour time frame is just kind of stalling as well. It's at 103.486. The price. Here's a daily chart, still holding above the Tenkan-sen. IBIT, same thing as that's the Bitcoin ETF, looking pretty good. Utilities is under the Tenkan-sen and above the 200, so it's just pulled back a little bit. It's more than likely to pop soon. Here's a 2-hour time frame. It's inside the cloud right now, but these last few hours of the day it showed some strength. GLD on the 2-hour time frame is pulling back, as you can see here on the 2-hour. It's under the Ichimoku cloud, and it's probably going to find some support right there at that 200-day moving average. Let's look at this also on the daily time frame. There it is on the daily. You can see this was the first day where it closed under the Kijun-sen. The other thing that's starting to happen here is that the negative DI is above positive DI. Now, of course, if you switch this to a weekly chart, you can see that gold has had a nice big run here. Is this going to be the end of the run for gold? I don't know the answer to that yet. When it comes to looking at the weekly chart, you have to always keep in mind that this candle, you have to wait until Friday of every week to know exactly what this is going to look like. It's a dynamic candle. Right now, it's still in the process of forming. We are only on Wednesday. It could certainly move up tomorrow and the next day and get right back above that Tenkan-sen, which will put it in a stronger support level and probably a continuation to the upside, honestly. So that's why I'm not ready to give up on gold quite yet, because the weekly chart has not formed and it hasn't given us that pullback yet. At least because here's the thing I'm concerned about with gold is that if it does close here under, it's more than likely going to come down to the Kijun-sen. That's about another 5% drop. So we'll see what happens. Okay, the rest of these, I'll just skim through these on the daily chart. You can see XLB is above the Tenkan-sen. Okay, but under the 200. Here's GDX. That's the gold miners ETF. It's down 2.13%. United States Oil Fund is under the cloud on the daily. XLC is popping above. On the communication services was up today. Here's a 2-hour time frame. You can see that since that date of April 23rd, it moved up approximately 9.2%. Here's SMH. And on April 23rd, see, isn't that interesting? April 23rd was the day that, we got that buy signal on many of these ETFs. And April 23rd on the 2-hour time frame, it's moved up 23.13%. XHB, also April 23rd, popped through that cloud, and that's moved up a bit. Here's the daily time frame. Ooh, interesting with the home builders. It is pulling back after reaching the top of the cloud. So, but finding support still. Real estate is dropping for the last 3 days now. U.S. dollar UUP is up 0.22%, but still in a decline. You can see that we're still in a downward trend here. XLY, and that's the cool thing about, again, this indicator is like when you're under the cloud, you know you're in a decline, you're in a downward trend, and there's no interest, there's not enough demand for that stock or ETF. But once it pops through, now all of a sudden, that's why you're hearing everybody on TV talking about, they're getting a lot more bullish now because we're breaking through these prior levels. We've got some type of answer on what's going to happen related to the tariffs, right? We know at least that there's going to be at least a 90-day, moratorium, right? So, but 90 days from now, we'll have to be contending with that again. So we'll see what happens there. XLV healthcare, guys. Remember, healthcare, I showed you guys what the sector was looking like. It is really, really bearish. One of the few sectors that's been punished, this year, 2025 here, it's still down about 6% from January, from right there, from that level. XLP, consumer staples, is up a little bit, maybe about 2.4%, but it's under the cloud. I'd stay out of that one for now. Whoops, sorry about that. XLK, technology, on the other hand, a nice move up, but a tiny little spinning top. I'd be concerned about that a little bit. It still has some room to run to the 241 level, and that is about 3.3% away. XLF financials, it broke through this level, this prior high, but seems to be stalling right now. Let's look at the 2 hour on that one. So you can see it's under the Tankinson, but still in a nice strong uptrend. The financials since April, this was on April 22nd that it popped through the cloud. It has moved up 8.6%. Energy. Energy is on the 2 hour time frame, stalling around the 200-day moving average, and there it is on the daily, right? Basically, stalling at the cloud too. COPX is copper miners ETF, and it's finding resistance on the daily time frame at the 200-day moving average, and here's the 2 hour. So even copper has had a nice little run here. Once it popped through that cloud on April 22nd, it's been up 7.6%. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really important to support the channel in channels like this by hitting that subscribe button. Remember, it's really easy. You just hit that, hit the notification bell, maybe hit the like button, and it will, of course, get out to more people, right? It helps with the algorithm. All right, have a good rest of the evening. Talk to you all later.